So, today, we'll go on to, or start, the first section. This one is pretty easy. So, we're going to talk about problem solving. What's this mean to you? Solving problems. Okay? If you problem solve, what do you do? In general, what do you do? You gotta solve the problem, right? What problems do you solve? Have you solved problems today?
Yeah.
Like what? What was one simple problem you solved today? How about getting up and going to school? So it's solving a problem, right? You had to set an alarm, or you had to get mom or dad or somebody to yell at you, or have the dog jump on you, or something, right? And then after that, you had to figure out how to get into the car, and in between then, did you brush your teeth? Did you have breakfast? Did you put clothes on, obviously? Thank God, right? So you had to think about all that stuff, right? Did we really think about it? Maybe, maybe not. When we were little kids, we probably would have had to, right? Okay, so problem solving in this case is we're going to try to set up a plan. And they're going to say that there's 4 steps in this plan. The first step is to explore. So if I'm going to do a math problem or any problem, what would it mean for me to explore the problem? What does that mean? Okay, figure out what to do, right? How would I do that? How would I do that, though? What's the number one thing that I would have to do, not necessarily in math and anything, and in some other class? If I'm taking a test, what's the first thing that I have to do with number 1? I got to look at it, right? Then after I look at it, I probably have to what? Actually read it, right? So I'm just exploring things. I'm trying to figure them out. But this may be reading the problem. When I read the problem, do I understand the problem? That's the question, right? As I'm reading the problem, how many of us like story problems in math? Kinda? Probably not, right? A lot of times, most people don't like paragraphs. If we have to read something, we don't like it in math, okay? But we got to figure it out. Remember when you take like Iowa assessments and stuff? What are some of the ones that give you the most problems? What problems give you the most problems? Story problems. And why do some story problems give you problems? Okay, you got to read a whole lot of stuff and then you forget about it. The other ones that really, really used to get me mad were the ones that had so much information and then you didn't have to use any of it. Remember those? So you had too much information, or what's on the other end of the spectrum? Yeah, you don't get enough stuff, right? So you got to figure out, do I have enough stuff to actually figure it out, okay? So that's number 1. Now, do we always do this? Do we sit there and read it? Yeah, we got to read the problem, right? The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a plan. What's this mean to you?
How are you going to figure out the problem?
Okay, how am I going to figure it out? How am I going to try to proceed to the next problem, or the next part of the problem? Okay, so yeah. What?
Assess your information.
Exactly right. Okay, so we're going to look at the stuff. We're going to look at the info. We're going to figure it out. And then in the back of your mind, you're probably starting to figure out what? I'm going to start to figure out how I'm going to try to do that. So in math, am I going to add, subtract, divide, multiply, something, okay? So I'm looking at the info. I'm going to choose an operation, we could say. When we say an operation, we're talking about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And then, realistically, gonna make a guess. Now, we don't want you to just guess for the actual answer, but we want you to make a guess. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, I want to put a ballpark figure out there, right? How many people are hot today in school, right? We could, if we guessed 5 people, is that a very good guess today? Probably not, right? Because there's a lot of us that are melting, okay? Especially if you're in a room like this all the time, like me. I get stuck here. Yeah. So I'm going to make a guess, but I'm going to make a realistic guess, okay? How much can Mike bench? Somebody says 800 pounds, we're going to probably say, that's probably fishy, right? Right? So we want to make a guess, but we're going to make it logical, okay? What's number 3 then? After we start making a plan, what do you think number 3 is? We're going to do it, okay? So number 3, we're going to execute the plan. What's this mean? We're going to use math to solve. So again, we're going to add, we're going to subtract, we're going to do whatever we're going to do. And we're going to hopefully find the answer. Now, even if we don't know how to do the problem, we can always put down an answer, right? We can guess. Okay? And then number 4 is we're going to, they call it examining it. But what's this really mean? Yeah. We're going to maybe check our answer. So is there a way that I can actually see if I made a mistake? You're going to ask yourself, did I answer the question? So if you all of a sudden said false and the answer or the question was how many people are in this room, false doesn't probably answer that question, right? You got to be realistic, okay? So you're going to see if it works, okay? And then you might have to try over again. So if you figured out, oh, well, my answer must be way off because I got 1 million, and it's supposed to be a relatively small answer, I'm going to have to start over again, okay? So, am I going to do this every single time for every single problem? In a sense, yeah, I do this every single time, but do I really do this? Do I write all those steps down? Probably not, right? Did I have to tell myself to get out of bed today? Did I have to write that down this morning? Then did I have to write down brush my teeth, comb my hair, take a shower, put my clothes on? No, but we're doing that all the time, right? So math's the same way. You're going to probably go through this every single time, but you're not going to actually write stuff down. That makes sense? Okay? So, here we go. Here's my first problem. The price of a large cheese pizza is $9.25. You get 50 cents discount for each additional pizza that you order, up to 10. So the first one's $9.25, obviously. If I buy 2, each of them are $8.75. If I buy 3, each of them are $8.25, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the first thing, does this make sense, what they're doing? That makes sense to everybody? So, I read the problem, I figured it out, we're okay with that. A plan, okay, so we have to figure out, what do they ask us now? If you need 8 pizzas for a party, what is the cost per pizza? So when I'm doing this number 2, I'm making a plan, I'm looking at the info that I have and choosing an operation. I also have to zero in on exactly what they're asking me for. So my answer is what? It's how much does each pizza going to cost me? All right? So realistically, right now, make a guess. $5.25. Anybody else? $4.75. Anybody else? If somebody said $10, what would we do to them? Hit them on top of the head and say, hey, start thinking. Because why? Because everything's going down, right? Ours should be definitely under $9.25 right now. Now, I can go hit him, but I'm going to throw my marker at Caden, right, when he says $10. Okay? So, how do I figure it out? Well, the first thing is, so now I start trying to execute my plan. The first one was $9.25. The next one was $8.75. And the third one was $8.25. So as I do this, the first thing that I recognize is what? How much is it between the cost of the pizzas? 50 cents, right? We're going down 50 cents. Everybody agree with that? Okay? So now, we are at 1, 2, right? Because this is really 0. That's nothing. And we want to get where? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we just start doing what? Going down by 50. What's my next one?
775.
Next. 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 525. Okay, so here's the next question. I'm building on the problem. So first off, if we examine, can we check our answer? Well, maybe not really check it, but does it make sense? Yeah, it's definitely way lower than what we started. So we're good there, right? So here's building on the question. How much is my total bill? How much is the total bill for my 8 pizzas? What do you think?
525 times 8.
Yeah, right. So remember, these are the cost of 1 pizza at a time. But we've now decided that we're going to get 8 of them. So for me to get my total bill, I'm going to take 8 times $5.25. So we get what? 0, 4, 16, 0, 2, $42? Does that make sense? Yeah, sure. Take your book out. So as you're opening your book to page 9 here, does this make sense what we just did there? So again, we did go through all the steps, but we really didn't write down all of the steps, did we? But we did do them. Okay? So on page 9, we're looking at number 3. Teal's got same thing as that. Number 3, read number 3 as I read it. The ferry schedule at the right shows that the ferry departs at regular intervals. So, first things first, we definitely have to look to the right-hand side. Everybody see what they're talking about here? Okay? Use the 4-step plan to find the earliest time a passenger can catch the ferry if he or she cannot leave until 1:30 in the afternoon. Alright? So the first things first is that we have to figure out how much time is between the departures. So if you look at the first one to the next one, how much time is in between those two departure times? 48 minutes, right? Because from 8:45 to 9 o'clock, that would be 15 minutes, and then I'm going to take 15 and add it to 33. So the next thing we have to see is it consistent throughout the whole time? So now try the next one. What's 9:33 to 10:21? Now this one might be a little harder. It's also 48 minutes. Okay? And so after there's 2 of them, we probably assume that the whole thing is pretty consistent. So it's every what? 48 minutes. And what's the last one they tell us? 11 what?
09.
11:09 a.m. I'm assuming, right? Okay. So so again, we read it. Now let's make a plan. We figured out what it was. It's going up or down, basically. Up by 48 minutes, right? So I guess you can make a guess. Again, would it make sense if I said 9 o'clock in the morning? No, because it's got to be in the afternoon, right? So we make a guess. What do you think? Roughly. What else do we know about our answer?
The earliest time is
1:30, right? So we really have to be somewhere around 1:30. Can it be after 1:30? Can it be before or after 1:30? It has to be after, right? Because I can't get there until 1:30. So if it's at 1:29, I'm gonna miss that one because I can't physically get there in time. Maybe jump for it, right? Hang on to the edge and hopefully don't fall off. Okay, so it's gotta be somewhere after 1:30. All right? So what are we gonna do? How do we find it? What do I do to 11:09? Add 48 minutes, right? So 11:09 plus 48, how much?
57.
11:57. Can I make that one?
No.
Nope. So I'm gonna add 48 minutes, right? 12:45. Can I make that one? No, not 1:30 yet. Now what? Add 48 more minutes. How much do I get now? 1:33. Can I make that one? Yes. So my answer? That's the first boat that I can make. And any other boat after that would actually be right. So if I wanted to go shopping or run some more errands, I just know that I can hit the 1:33 one, but anything after that I can, anything before that I can't make it. That make sense to everybody? Yeah? All right. Questions there? So the next thing that they talk about in this section is something called inductive reasoning. This is probably something you've never really heard of. Well, maybe last year, but I mean, in general, this is probably something you hadn't heard before last year. Any idea what that means? Inductive reasoning is just another way of thinking. Okay, so we would do a lot of this in geometry. So when you take geometry with me, we'll do inductive reasoning a lot. What's this? This is like making a guess from patterns or examples or from the past. So I'm going to come up with some kind of conclusion because of other things that have happened before this. Okay, so we could have went and had a survey at lunchtime and asked, what is your favorite movie? Okay, so we could have given options of 4 movies and then maybe some other one or whatever. So we could then say, because of the pattern that we're looking at, we come to the conclusion that everybody likes this, or 65% of the people say it's whatever movie you want. Okay? Another thing would be straight patterns. So what's a pattern? Well, if we started painting things on the wall, and we had a circle, and then we had, from that first circle to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, we had a pattern going in that circle, and then they stopped like on this wall, but we wanted to continue that pattern all the way around the whole classroom. Could we figure out what that pattern is? Hopefully, right? Maybe it was like a red line, where that red line was, whatever it happened to be. But that would be a pattern. Another pattern would be kind of what we just talked about here and here, right? What was the pattern here? The pattern here was we went down 50 cents. What was the pattern here? We went up by 48 minutes, right? So those are patterns. So we can do this using something called a sequence. Have you heard the word sequence? So we're given a bunch of numbers and we're trying to figure out the pattern between those numbers. So look at this. 1, 4, 16, 64, 256. What happens consistently between those numbers? It's multiplying by 4, right? We don't want to just say going up by 4, because going up by 4 might tell somebody that it's adding instead of multiplying. But is he right? Looks like it, right? And then they might also then go and say, okay, find the next 3 terms that would come. So what would I have to do to 256? And then after that, by 4 again, by 4 again. So that's my pattern, right? And we can come to the conclusion that we can figure out what the next numbers are, okay? Next one, 37, 33, 29, 25, 21. Down by 4, down by how? Subtracting, right? Next one. Multiply by what? 4, right? 3 times 12, or sorry, 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times 4 is 48, and so on. So what happens if you can't figure it out? How do you figure it out? Well, right at the beginning, they're probably going to give you problems that either you're going to add or subtract or multiply or divide. So that's where I would start. And then seeing if you could figure it out. Okay? The other way of patterns would be something like this. And this is the one that we're talking about here. Earlier with my wall example. If I had this triangle and they asked you what's the next triangle in the pattern, what would we say? It's going to go up, right? But that's all they're talking about with patterns. So it's as simple as that. We would say this is my next one. And it makes sense because all we're doing with the triangle is turning it around in a circle. Okay? The last thing that they talk about in this section is how to compute. Okay? This really means, do they want you to give a specific answer, or do they want you to estimate or round? All right? I believe I take all of these out of all of your assignments. I don't like rounding. I don't like guesstimating. Okay? So if for some reason we get to one of those and it's still, I didn't take it out, get an exact answer. Okay? Whether you have to do the math on your piece of paper or if you do it on a calculator. But get all exact answers from here on out. And besides your answers, always put a label on it. Okay, so whatever we're talking about. Free throws, home runs, whatever it happens to be, strikeouts. Okay? Batting strikeouts. Okay? So make sure that you probably only have 5 at bats. Make sure that you always put a label on. Okay? All right. So, questions? So the rest of the time is yours. You get to look at